The day after Tom's funeral, his sister Emma showed up with cookies. She sat on my couch eating them while I stared at the TV screen. It wasn't even on. Emma kept talking about something, houses maybe, or money. I wasn't really listening. Then she said something that made me look up. "Did Tom ever tell you about the backup key?" I blinked at her. "Okay." She smiled like she knew a secret. "The one to his office. He told me he hid it somewhere safe. Just in case." "In case of what?" Thought. "He's been gone one day. People came and went all week. They brought food I didn't eat. They hugged me and said nice things. He was such a good man. You two were so perfect together. This must be so hard for you." But I didn't cry. Not once. Everyone thought something was wrong with me. Maybe. They were right. Maybe I should have felt sadder. But honestly, felt lighter. Like a heavy coat had finally come off my shoulders. That night after everyone left, I walked through our house touching things. The blue vase on the shelf. The photo frames on the wall. The doorknob to the bathroom. Everything felt different now. Empty but not in a bad way. Then I stopped in front of his office door. That wooden door with the silver handle. The one I never opened. Not in 48 years of marriage. He always said it was for work stuff. Private papers. Client information. "You don't need to go in there," he'd say with a smile. "It's boring anyway. Just bills and old files." But even after he stopped working, the door stayed locked. Every single night, I'd hear the click of the lock from inside. Sometimes I'd hear papers shuffling. Sometimes his voice, low and serious, like he was talking to someone. But he was alone in there. I asked him once what he was doing. He laughed. "Just organizing, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry your pretty head about." Pretty head. Like I was 5 years old. I put my hand on the door now. Felt cold. Smooth. I tried the handle. Locked just like always. But Tom wasn't here anymore to tell me no. For the first time in my whole life, nobody was here to tell me no. I stood there for a long time just staring at that door. Part of me wanted to walk away. Pretend it didn't exist. But a bigger part of me, a part I'd forgotten was even there, wanted to know. What was he hiding? The next day I called someone to open it. I found a phone number online. A man who fixes locks. He came in the afternoon. He was younger than my son. Wore a blue shirt with his name on it. He looked at the door and nodded. Old lock. Real old. Hasn't been changed in forever. He worked fast. 15 minutes, maybe less. The whole time my heart was beating so loud I thought he might hear it. When the lock finally clicked open, I held my breath. "All done," Mike said, packing up his tools. "You need anything else?" I shook my head. He left, and I was alone with that open door. I didn't go in right away. I just stood there, looking into the dark room. Smelled weird. Old paper. Something sour underneath. The room was neat. Too neat. A big wooden desk in the middle. Shelves all around with books and folders. Lamp. Chair. Everything in its place. But when I looked closer I saw labels. On every shelf. Every folder. And my name was everywhere. Ruth. Ruth's schedule. Ruth's appointments. Ruth's friends. My hands started shaking. I didn't go inside. Not that day. I closed the door but I didn't lock it. I left it open just a crack. Like a mouth that needed to breathe. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about those labels. My name written over and over like I was some kind of project. Some kind of science experiment. By morning I was tired in my bones. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. I made tea but forgot to drink it. Looked in the mirror and barely knew the woman staring back. White hair. Thin face. Eyes that looked scared and angry at the same time. When did I stop being me? By lunch I couldn't take it anymore. I walked back to that room and pushed the door wide open. The smell hit me again. Paper and dust and something else. Something that made my stomach hurt. I walked to the desk slowly, like I was sneaking into someone else's house. There was a white envelope on top. My name on it. Ruth. His handwriting. Neat and perfect like always. I opened it with shaky fingers. No letter inside. Just a list. Rules for Ruth after I'm gone. Call Emma right away. She'll help with money stuff. Don't go into my office. A lawyer will handle everything. Keep taking your medicine like the doctor said. Let Emma make all the big choices. Don't stress yourself. Stick to your normal routine. Take your pills every morning. No, I love you. No, thank you for being my wife. Just orders. Instructions. Like I was a child who couldn't think for myself. I sat down in his chair. Let the paper fall on the floor. He planned this. Even after dying, he was still telling me what to do. Still acting like I was too stupid to live my own life. I opened the desk drawer. Inside were folders. Neat and organized. Ruth's medicine. Ruth's doctor visits. Ruth's daily activities. I grabbed one and opened it. Inside were papers. Prescriptions I didn't remember getting. Notes in his handwriting. Give her more pills if she gets upset. That was from 3 years ago. What upset? I was never upset. Another folder had letters. My letters. Ones I wrote to my sister. To my friend Nancy. Even birthday cards I sent to people. All opened. All read. Some had red marker on them. Sounds worried here. Mentioned feeling tired. He was watching me. Reading my private letters. Taking notes like I was some kind of test subject. The whole room was full of files about me. Like I was his homework. I moved to the shelves. Every folder had a year on it. Some had months. Ruth's behavior 2015. Ruth's schedule check 2018. Pulled one down. Opened it. Typed notes everywhere. April 10th. Ruth stayed at the store too long. Strange. October 22nd. Ruth didn't want her medicine. Got mad. I pressed my hand to my chest. My heart hurt. I remembered those days. I remembered the fights. The times he'd tell me to rest. How he'd pour my water. How I was always too tired to go places. It was all planned. All controlled. I sat down again. My legs felt wobbly. This wasn't a normal office. This was a control room. Place where he watched me like a bug under glass. And I never knew. Never even thought to ask. The afternoon light came through the window, making long shadows on the floor. That envelope was still on the ground. His perfect handwriting staring up at me like a ghost. He didn't leave me a love letter. He left me homework. Things to do. Ways to behave. And for the first time in my whole marriage, I decided not to listen. Not to any of it. The box was hidden behind the curtain. I didn't see it the first time. I was too busy looking at all those folders. But the next morning when I came back with my coffee, I noticed something behind the long red curtain on the wall. A small gray box built right into the wall. Safe. I'd seen Tom put things in there before years ago. He used to joke about it at parties. Every man needs one secret, he'd say with that little smile. I always thought he meant old photos. Maybe some money. Something normal. Not whatever this was. I touched the keypad. 4 numbers. I had no idea what they were. I sat in the chair and looked around the room. Everything was so neat. So perfect. Every book in its place. Every paper lined up just right. Felt like being inside someone's brain. A brain that spent all its time thinking about controlling me. I spotted a notebook on the shelf. Dark blue cover. It said Ruth's Patterns on the front. Opened it. June 3rd. Ruth didn't want to go to church. Voice sounded sharp. Need to fix this. September 19th. Ruth looked tired. Maybe needs more vitamins. Check with doctor. December 5th. Ruth cried at breakfast. Might be her hormones. Keep watching. My tears weren't even real to him. They were just data. Information to write down. I wasn't his wife. I was his experiment. Closed the notebook. Grabbed another one from the drawer. This one was a planner. His handwriting filled every page. On the last page there was a list of numbers, codes, passwords, random stuff. One of them had a date next to it. Our wedding day. May 22nd. I went back to the safe. Typed in 0522. Click. The door swung open. I thought there'd be money inside. Maybe a gun. Something scary. But it wasn't that. It was worse. 3 things were inside. A big yellow envelope that said, Last Will and Testament Private. A folder that said, Ruth cannot take care of herself anymore. A small metal box with a lock on it. My hands were shaking when I picked up the second folder. Inside was a official-looking paper, signed by a notary, dated 6 months ago. Said I was losing my mind, that I couldn't think straight anymore, that I needed someone to make choices for me, that I couldn't handle my own life. He was going to say I was crazy. There were doctor signatures at the bottom, names I knew. One doctor came to our Christmas party last year. My face got hot. I tasted metal in my mouth. He was building a trap. Step by step, paper by paper. He was going to take everything from me. My choices, my money, my house, even my name. The will could wait. I wasn't ready for that yet. I closed the safe carefully, memorized the numbers. Then I just stood there in the middle of the room, staring at his desk. This wasn't just being bossy. This was a plan. A plan to make everyone think I was stupid. That my feelings didn't matter. That my words didn't count. And it worked. 'Cause I was quiet. Because I let him speak for both of us. 'Cause I thought being a good wife meant never saying no. Even when the walls started closing in. I walked out and closed the door behind me. Didn't lock it. Didn't need to. Because now I knew what was hiding in there. And I wasn't the woman he wrote about anymore. He built me a cage, not a home. That thought stayed in my head all morning. I walked from room to room. Same yellow curtains I made in 1985. Same cracked cup on the counter he hated. Same old rug from our honeymoon trip to the beach. But everything looked different now. I wondered, did anything here really belong to me? The safe had scared me. But that folder, the one saying I was crazy, it made me see everything else differently. He wasn't just planning for his death. He was planning for me to disappear. Quietly. Legally. Long before his heart stopped. I went back to the office with a mission. This time I didn't stop at the doorway. I went straight to the shelves. A thin black folder caught my eye. Ruth's legal papers. Inside were copies of things I'd signed over the years. But they weren't what I remembered. There was a paper giving Tom control of everything. Signed 5 years ago. I didn't remember signing it. His lawyer friend Emma helped notarize it. Course she did. There was another paper about a trust. Something about limited access. Overseen by family financial helper. Emma again. And a folder full of doctor papers. Diagnoses I'd never heard of. Memory problems. Worry disorder. Pills I didn't remember taking. Notes from appointments I didn't recall. I started to wonder. Did he ever let me talk to a doctor alone? He drove me to every appointment. Always stayed in the room. Always interrupted. Always answered for me. The doctor would ask, "How do you feel, Ruth?" Tom would answer, "She's been confused lately. Haven't you, honey?" And I'd nod. 'Cause it was easier. Because I didn't want to cause problems. Because I didn't know I was being erased. Found one more paper. Not signed yet but finished. A request to move the house deed to Emma. The reason? I couldn't handle property stuff anymore. It was dated last autumn. He was about to do it. Just didn't get the chance before he died. Suddenly everything made sense. Why he never let me see the bills. Why he'd frown when I asked about the mortgage or the lights or the insurance. Why we always used his people for everything. I sat down in his chair. The leather squeaked under me. The same chair he sat in every night for hours, planning how to make me disappear. On the bottom shelf I saw a plain folder. No label. Opened it. Inside were photos. Not of me. Not of us. But of my friends. My sister Linda. Our neighbor Barbara. Photos taken from far away. Through windows. From across the street. With notes underneath each one. Linda. Bad influence. Makes Ruth remember old times. Barbara. Talks too much. Stop weekly coffee. Helen's sister. Asked about medicine. Watch if she keeps asking. I dropped the folder. He wasn't just watching me. He was tracking everyone who might help me remember who I was. I felt anger rise up in me. Slow and cold and heavy. Not screaming anger. Not throwing things anger. Just clear anger. This man didn't love me. He managed me. He created a world where everyone, the lawyers, the neighbors, even our family doctor, thought I was weak, fragile, broken, stupid. And the worst part, helped him. Every time I stayed quiet. Every time I said, he's just protective. Every time I let him speak for me. Every time I told myself it was just marriage, just getting older, just how things were. I stood up slowly. My knees cracked. I walked to the window. Outside was the same yard I watered. The same mailbox I painted yellow. The same street where I waved to neighbors. But the woman behind the glass now was different. She knew the truth. And she wasn't going to let it stay buried in a locked room. The will was where the real meanness lived. I waited 3 days before reading it. 3 days of pacing the house. Sorting his clothes. Pretending to eat. Pretending to sleep. I told myself it didn't matter. That I didn't care what he wrote. But I did. Because everything he'd done so far, every lie, every trick, had been perfectly planned. And this would be his last move. The envelope was thick. Stamped with a law office name I didn't know. Inside were 20 pages of words I could barely understand. First, nothing made sense. But then halfway through, the words started forming a picture. All money, property, and stuff stays in a trust managed by Emma Grant until Ruth is able to think clearly enough to handle things herself. Able to think clearly. Those words again. If Ruth needs a care home, the money will pay for it. But only if her medical guardian approves the place. My hand shook. If Ruth gets sick in the mind or body, her care comes first. Leftover money goes back to the family trust. Goes back. A nice way of saying taken away. He didn't leave me anything. Not really. I could live in the house but not own it. Spend money but not choose how. Exist but not decide. He turned me into a helpless person even after death. For a long time I just sat there. The will spread out like a map showing everything I'd given up without knowing. The quiet in the house was so loud it hurt. Even the clock ticking felt like it was accusing me. When I finally moved, I went to the hall mirror. Looked at myself. Bill. Shoulders hunched forward. But underneath the tiredness, I saw something new. Something old and slow and burning. Teddy. He wanted to control me from the grave. But graves don't have power anymore. I took the will, folded it neat, and put it in my own folder. Then I wrote on the front in big letters. Proof. That word made me feel better. Proof. Evidence. Not feelings. Not memories. Something I could show. Something I could use. By afternoon I'd made a list. People to call. Things to find out. Emma's name was at the top. When I called her, she sounded careful. Slippery. Aunt Ruth, I've been meaning to call you. You're the executor, I interrupted. Was. Yes. I've already started the papers. Don't you worry. Don't start anything, I said. Not until I talk to a lawyer. She went quiet. Then her voice got lower. Ruth, your husband's will is very clear. It's to protect you. We don't want to. Who's we, Emma? Silence. That told me everything I needed to know. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet again. But this time it felt different. Not empty. Purposeful. Every heartbeat was telling me something. Move. Think. In the drawer next to me, I found my old phone book. Almost forgotten. Inside, with faded phone numbers, one name stood out. Dorothy Mills. My oldest friend. We hadn't talked in years. Tom didn't like her. Said she put crazy ideas in my head. Which now I realized meant she saw through him. I dialed her number. She answered on the third ring. Ruth. Same warm, surprised voice. My goodness, I thought. Well, I didn't think you'd ever call. Neither did I said softly. But I've been reading. Was. Reading what? My husband's mind. Another pause. Then a sharp breath. So you finally opened that room. Yes, I whispered. And I'm not done yet. That night I didn't close the office door. I left it open. Light spilled into the hall like a quiet rebellion. The air didn't feel haunted anymore. Felt like mine. The lawyer looked at me like I was someone's confused grandmother. He was young, maybe 35. Kind eyes, careful voice. Like he was afraid I might cry or forget where I was. I didn't. I sat across from him in my best blue coat, hair pinned back, papers organized in a folder I labeled proof. I handed him the will, then the doctor papers, then the control document, the trust papers, the fake diagnosis. He looked through them slowly. His eyebrows went up, then up again. By the third paper his voice changed. "Mrs. Ruth, I don't know what to say." "Say the truth," I said. "Tell me what he tried to do." He nodded slowly, took a breath. "What he did," he said, "was try to make a legal setup that took away your freedom without actually going to court to say you were incompetent. Which means he walked a thin line. He never actually filed the paper saying I was incompetent." "Correct." "Not yet," I said. "But he was going to." The lawyer, his name was Mr. Torres, leaned back. He looked thoughtful now, not pitying. The will is set up to trigger those limits when he died. But everything depends on the idea that you won't fight it." He looked at me searching. "Are you planning to?" "I didn't come here for comfort," I said quietly. "I came for a way out." He smiled just a little. "Then you're in the right place." We spent the next hour breaking down the papers one part at a time. Mr. Torres explained what the trust did, who controlled it, how to challenge it. He told me the will wasn't as strong as Tom probably thought. Not with proof of tricks. Not with written patterns of control. "I'll need to look at everything closely," he said. "But I think we can fight this. Especially if you can prove he lied to professionals or forced you into decisions." "I have more," I said. "Photos, journals, logs, doctor records I never agreed to." He blinked. "Bring it all. The more the better." As I gathered my things I paused. "There's something else," I said. "Yes. I don't just want to break the will," I said. "I want to be the one who writes the next one." Mr. Torres nodded slowly. "We can do that. When the trust is broken, the stuff will come back to you. You'll be free to decide everything." Everything. It rang in my mind like a bell. As I left his office, the fall wind pulled at my coat. The sky was sharp and clear. Downtown was loud. But I felt calm. Solid. For the first time in decades, I was handling my own life. Not reacting. Not apologizing. Not waiting for permission. Just acting. At home, I put the folder carefully in the drawer. Then I went back to the office. The safe sat quietly behind the curtain. I opened it again. This time I reached for the locked metal box. It was heavier than I thought. Inside were jewelry pieces, some old letters, few family things, and at the bottom an envelope with my full name. When I opened it, I expected another list. But it wasn't. It was a check, blank, with a full amount from our joint account. And a single sentence written on paper underneath. "In case you ever found the door." I stared at it for a long time. So he knew. He knew I'd find it someday. Maybe not soon. Maybe not ever. But some part of him, buried deep under all the cold control, must have known I wouldn't stay trapped forever. I folded the check, put it back in the box, closed it gently. Not because I forgave him, but because I didn't need his permission anymore. The call from Emma came while I was making soup. I let it ring once. Then picked it up, wiping my hands on a towel. She didn't waste time. "Aunt Ruth," she said. "Too warm. Too smooth. I was surprised to hear from your lawyer this morning. You didn't tell me you hired someone." I stirred the pot. "You didn't tell me you planned to run my life." Your husband trusted me. He named me executor for a reason." "Yes. Because he knew I wouldn't fight." "He was wrong." Another pause. Longer this time. I imagined her frowning, trying to figure out how much patience this was worth. "You don't have to be hostile," she said finally. "We're family." I'm just trying to make sure you're taken care of. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Taken care of? I repeated. Emma, I've been taken care of for 48 years. It almost killed me. Her voice tightened. You're not thinking clearly. There's a reason the papers include oversight. Uncle Tom was worried about my mind, I cut in. Funny. Every doctor I've seen in the last year says it's sharp as ever. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Since none of those records are in your files. I heard her breathe in, frustrated. Then a shift. Look, she said, switching to fake sympathy. The condescending kind. You're grieving. Get it. But fighting a trust, challenging a will, it's going to cost time and money. If you just let me handle things. Your name's not on anything anymore, I said. I've taken away your access. I've filed the papers. And I've hired someone smarter than both of us. Silence. Then coldly. You'll regret this. You don't know how hard this gets. I didn't flinch. You don't know how hard it's already been. Hung up. My hands shook as I set the phone down. But not from fear. It was something else. Energy. Maybe. That rush of saying what should have been said years ago. Of not flinching. Of not apologizing for being awake. The next morning Mr. Torres called with news. We've filed the motion to freeze the trust, he said. Your niece can't make any moves until the hearing. We'll start preparing for the fight next. What happens if we win? Yes. You get full legal and financial independence. Control of the estate. The house. Everything. Everything. There was that word again. That afternoon I opened the office windows. First time in years. Let the air in. Let the dust out. I took down the curtains. The heavy ones he insisted on. Threw them in a garbage bag. Then I pulled the frames off the wall. His awards. His certificates. All hung like declarations of power. I wrapped them in old towels and boxed them. Put the box in the garage. Not out of hate. Out of space. Because I needed room to breathe. In the corner sat a filing cabinet I hadn't opened yet. It looked normal. Brown. Dented. But something told me it mattered. I forced the drawer open. Inside were more files. Folders with initials. Women's names I didn't know. Their addresses. Birth dates. My breath stopped. One folder said D. Mills. Had photos of Dorothy. My friend. The one I'd just called. Notes in his handwriting. Persistent problem. Encouraged Ruth to skip routine. Suggested therapy stop. He documented her like a threat. Another file. And Franklin. Nancy. My friend from church. She stopped calling years ago. I thought life just got busy. Observed repeated talk of independence. Potential destabilizing person. I sat down slowly. He hadn't just watched me. He tracked anyone who reminded me who I was. He knew. He knew all along that I was still in there. Still whole. Still dangerous to his plan. That's why he worked so hard to convince everyone I was weak. 'Cause he was afraid. And he was right to be. Dorothy cried when I showed her the folder with her name on it. Not from fear. Not from shock. Just quiet old sadness. The kind that says I knew but I let it go. We sat in her bright kitchen. 2 cups of tea between us. The file open on the table. She turned each page slowly. Notes in his handwriting. Watching dates. A typed memo he wrote to himself. Dorothy remains a problem factor. Recommend against contact. Increase story of forgetfulness if needed. Story. He'd built a fake story about me. And about anyone who tried to reach me. I always wondered, Dorothy said softly, why the last time I called you were so flat. Hollow. Like you were underwater. I looked at her hands. Still strong. Still her. Because I was. She closed the file. And now I'm breathing again. We talked for hours. Not just about the papers or the will or Emma. But about the years in between. The quietness that grew inside me. The way I stopped going to book club. Stopped meeting her for lunch. Stopped laughing with my whole face. I thought maybe you were sick, she said. Or sad. I was managed, I said. She reached across the table and took my hand. You're not alone, Ruth. Took everything not to cry. Not because I was sad, but because I'd forgotten how it felt to be believed. When I got home that afternoon, a letter was waiting in the mailbox. Thick envelope. No return address. My name in the handwriting I'd lived with most of my life. I opened it on the kitchen counter. Inside, one sheet of paper. You are lost without help. Don't destroy what little you have left. Stop this now or the world will see what I always saw. No signature. But I didn't need one. The words were familiar. Full of hidden threats and fake worry. He'd written it before he died. I knew that in my bones. He'd left it for Emma or someone else to send if I stepped out of line. Like a slap from beyond the grave. But it didn't hit. Not anymore. I folded the paper once and put it in the fireplace. Caught quickly. Burned quietly. And in the flicker of its death, I said out loud to no one and to everyone, "You don't get to tell my story anymore." That night, I pulled a box from the closet. The one with old photo books. Letters. Bits of who I'd been before him. Before I bent myself to fit his shape. There I was at the beach. Laughing. Paint on my hands in the kitchen. Dorothy and me in silly hats. Nancy and me dancing on her porch. That woman was still inside me. She'd just been buried under papers and pills and 1,000 tiny cuts called concern. I stayed up until morning writing. Not a diary. Not a confession. Plan. For every paper he filed against me, I'd write a truth. For every lie he left behind, I'd plant something living. And when the time came, when court happened, when choices were made, I wouldn't just bring evidence. Bring me. Emma showed up on my porch 3 days later. Uninvited. It was early evening. I just poured myself a glass of lemonade. The first in years that didn't feel like a secret. The knock was hard. I opened the door slowly. She stood there in a suit. Sleeves wrinkled. Hair messy. She looked like a person coming apart. "I need to talk to you," she said. Not even trying to smile. "Then talk," I answered. Not moving from the doorway. "Inside." "No." She looked around like she was worried the neighbors might see. "Fine," she muttered. "You've made this very messy, Aunt Ruth. You mean I've stopped your inheritance?" Her jaw got tight. "That's not what this is about." "No." "Then tell me what it's about." She hesitated just a second. Then pulled a folded paper from her coat and held it out. I didn't take it. "Your husband gave this to me a month before he died," Emma said. "Instructions. Backup plans. He wanted everything handled with dignity. With respect for your condition." "My condition," I repeated. Flat. He kept going. "He feared you'd do something crazy. That you'd lash out in confusion. We were trying to protect you. By taking away my home." "It's in the trust," she snapped. "The law. I've seen the law," I cut in. "And I've hired someone who actually respects it." She shifted again. Sweat on her forehead. "You're going to lose, Ruth," she said. Low and mean. "You're going to burn through the money fighting this. And in the end, you'll still be alone." I leaned against the doorframe. Calm as I'd ever been. "I've been alone for years, Emma. You just didn't notice because I was polite about it." She opened her mouth. Then closed it. That was always the problem with people like her. They only understood power when it looked like theirs. Smiled. "You can leave now." She didn't move. "Or I can call my lawyer and tell him you're bothering me on my own property." That got her. She turned, muttering something under her breath, and walked down the porch steps. Her car, shiny and black, drove away too fast. I stood in the doorway until the lights disappeared. Then I closed the door. Not gently. That night, I added another page to my file. A summary of the visit. Word for word. I knew how these people worked. They'd call it concern. They'd say I was getting worse. They'd try to make my fighting look like craziness. But I was building my own record now. The next morning I met with Mr. Torres again. We went over every part of the trust. Every mistake in the doctor reports. Every witness statement I'd started collecting from Dorothy, from Nancy, even from the pharmacy worker who remembered Tom picking up prescriptions under his name, not mine. "You're doing better than most," Mr. Torres said, smiling. "Most people don't have the clarity you do." "I wasn't allowed to have clarity," I said. "That was the whole point." He nodded. As I left his office, I passed a mirror in the hall. Caught myself. Hair a little messy from wind. Cheeks pink from walking. Shoulders straight. I looked real. Not invisible. Not someone's wife. Not a fading memory in a file. Just a woman with fire in her chest and a name she wasn't letting anyone rewrite. I used to think quiet was safe. Now I know it's where people disappear. Not all at once. Not with noise. But slowly. So gently they don't even notice they're gone. I'd been disappearing for years. One pill at a time. One cancelled lunch. One mean comment. "You don't need to worry about that, sweetheart. I'll handle it. You rest. No need to think too hard." Like I was a fading light someone was quietly turning off until I wasn't shining at all. But 10 days after Emma stood on my porch trying to scare me into giving up, I stood in a notary office and signed my own name. Clearly. Steadily. On a paper taking back control. The woman behind the counter looked up. Must have been my granddaughter's age. 22, maybe 25. But she looked at me like I was something special. "Mrs. Ruth," she said, "if more people came in like you." I didn't ask her to finish. I walked out of that building taller than I'd walked in. The next task was harder. Personal. Took the bus. Not because I had to, but because I hadn't in years. I needed the reminder of who I used to be. The one who knew how to get around without asking for help or permission or forgiveness. I rode into the city and climbed 3 flights of stairs in an old building that smelled like coffee and wet and old floors. Nancy answered her door wearing slippers, holding a dish towel. Her eyes got big when she saw me. Ruth. That name. I hadn't heard it said with warmth in 10 years. "Are you going to let me in?" I said gently. "Or are we going to pretend the last 10 years didn't happen?" She let me in. No questions. The apartment was warm. Light through the kitchen window hit her counter like honey. I sat on a wooden stool while she poured 2 cups of coffee. We didn't talk about the lost years right away. We talked about her cat. The neighbor's new car. The fact that my hair looked better short. "You should have done that years ago," she said, smiling. Then I told her everything. The room went quiet. She didn't interrupt. Just held her cup in both hands. Still as a statue. When I finished, she blinked. "Ruth," she said. "I had no idea." "I know. I thought you just faded away." "I did," I said. He made sure of it. She set her coffee down and reached across the table. "I'm so sorry." We stayed that way, hand over hand, for a long time. Then she said something I hadn't expected. "I want to write a statement about what he said to me the last time we talked. You remember that?" I never forgot. That evening she emailed it to me. A short, clear paragraph describing how Tom had called her once, back when we still saw each other often, told her that I was under a lot of stress, that I struggled with memory, that I often misunderstood things. That he was doing his best to protect me. That she should back off for my safety. And so she did. Because she trusted him. Because she didn't want to make things worse. Because she thought maybe he was telling the truth. I read it 4 times. Then printed it. Filed it under supporting evidence. Character lies. I sent a copy to Mr. Torres. He called within the hour. "This is excellent," he said. "This shows intent. Shows a pattern. If we get 2 more like this, I think the judge will have no choice but to at least partly break the trust." "But I don't want part," I said. "I want the whole thing burned." He didn't laugh. Neither did I. That night, I pulled a box from the closet I hadn't touched since 2001. Inside were letters. Real ones. Envelopes. Stamp. Letters I'd written to myself once a year. Every New Year's Eve. Back when I still believed in becoming someone better. I opened the last one. It said, "I hope you haven't forgotten what it felt like to laugh with your mouth open. I hope you're still reading. Still walking fast. Still making lists. Still refusing to say sorry for your voice. Still alive in the ways that matter. I held that paper to my chest. No tears came. Only heat. Only something I hadn't felt in years. A sense of coming back. She found the papers under a pile of magazines. Not because she was snooping, but because she was bored. My granddaughter Lily had been staying the weekend. And after an hour of my homemade cookies and a walk around the yard, she started looking through my old photo books and dusty shelves. Like only a 16-year-old can. Curious without fear. "Grandma," she called from the study. "Who's Anne Franklin?" I was in the kitchen washing dishes. Froze. "Where did you see that name?" asked. Too calmly. "There's a file," she said, "with lots of papers in your handwriting and some in someone else's. Says things like watch conversation. And it has a photo. A woman in a red scarf. Nancy." I dried my hands and walked slowly toward her. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor. The file opened on the rug. One page in her hand. She looked up at me. And for a second, just a second, I saw the same look in her eyes I used to see in the mirror. Confusion. Disbelief. I sat down beside her. My knees cracked as I folded myself beside the mess of papers. "Put that down, sweetie," I said gently. "I'll tell you everything." She did. And I did. For the first time out loud, without cleaning up the story to make it less shameful. Without excusing him. Without smoothing the edges. I told her about the office. The safe. The fake diagnosis. The friends he tried to cut off. The money he kept from me. The papers that said I was stupid. The visits I wasn't allowed to make. The questions I was trained not to ask. She listened. Silent. Eyes wide. "Why would he do that?" she whispered. "Because he needed me to be smaller than him," I said. "And when I wasn't, he found ways to make it look like I was." Lily nodded slowly. "That's abuse." And blinked. The word landed like a hammer. "Yes," I said finally. "It is." She gathered the papers and put them gently back in the folder. Then she looked me in the eye. And this child, this teenager with her black nail polish and sharp brain and zero tolerance for lies, said, "He was wrong about you." And just like that, something broke open in me. Something I didn't know was still locked. Later that night, after she'd gone to sleep in the guest room, I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out a clean sheet of paper. At the top I wrote, "Testimony. Lily Ruth. Witness to documents and emotional impact." I described the moment, her reaction, her words. Not because I needed more evidence for court, though Mr. Torres would be pleased, but because it mattered. It mattered that someone young, someone untouched by the story Tom had built, saw me clearly, without filters, without history clouding her eyes. It meant the truth wasn't just mine anymore. The next morning, Lily left early for a school project. But before she did, she hugged me tighter than usual. "Don't let them win, Grandma," she said. Smiled. "I don't plan to." When she was gone, I stood in the study and looked around. For decades, this room had been his. His thoughts, his secrets, his power. Now it was where my granddaughter called out the word abuse like a match in a dark room. Now it was mine. I sat at the desk, opened the laptop, one he never used, and created a new folder. I named it Rebuilding. And I began uploading every file, every photo, every note. I wasn't just preparing for court anymore. I was preparing to rebuild. On my terms. The new lawyer didn't speak right away. She sat behind a wide wooden desk. Glasses low on her nose. Gray hair twisted in a bun that looked like it had never once come loose. Her name was Judith Bell. Mr. Torres had recommended her. "If you want someone who's calm in court and deadly with paperwork, she's your person." She flipped slowly through my folder. Page after page. One long painted fingernail tapping the table with each turn. I sat across from her. Spine straight. Not a drop of fear in me. Only waiting. Finally she looked up. "This isn't just a trust dispute," she said. "This is a full-scale identity eraser." He nodded. She tapped a paragraph on the will. He structured it so you'd be paid for obedience, not partnership. He always did. Did anyone ever try to step in? I smiled faintly. They didn't know they had to. Judith nodded. That's the cruelty of it. People see bruises, they act. But you hide someone's mind and no one notices. Not right away. She closed the folder. You've built a solid foundation. Affidavits, logs, wrong diagnosis, irregular power papers. But there's one more thing that could tip this. Proof of intent. A document or message where he clearly shows he meant to control you, not help. I have something, I said quietly. I reached into my purse and pulled out the letter. The one Emma had delivered after his death. The one that said, "Stop this now or the world will see what I always saw." Judith read it once, then again. Then she smiled. Not kindly. "Oh," she said. "He made our job very easy." We spent the next hour discussing strategy. There would be a first hearing in 3 weeks. She'd asked to suspend Emma's executor role. File a motion to dissolve the trust. Submit evidence for financial abuse and controlling behavior. Will I have to speak in court? Yes. Yes, she said. But you won't be alone. That night I sat by the fireplace. Folder in my lap. The pages almost warm from my hands. I kept thinking about something Nancy had said in her statement. He made everyone believe she was fragile when really she was the strongest woman in the room. I thought of Lily looking at those files with fire in her voice. Of Dorothy saying, "You're not alone." Of Mr. Torres telling me, "You're clearer than most clients half your age." Of Judith quietly placing the letter in a file labeled confession. They saw me. And still, they weren't half as important as what I saw in myself now. The next morning I walked into the local library, the one I hadn't visited in 14 years, and asked for the event room. The librarian blinked. "Are you hosting something?" "Yes," I said. "A workshop." She tilted her head. "On what?" Smiled. "Property clarity and mental tricks in long marriages." She blinked again. "You mean like financial abuse?" "Yes," I said. "But polite, quiet. The kind no one talks about until it's too late." He stared, then nodded. "We've never had that before." "I'm not surprised." Paid the fee, reserved a date, and left with a stack of flyers under my arm. On the way out, I saw my reflection in the glass of the exit door. Same silver hair, same lined eyes. But something else now too. A woman who'd been pushed into silence for half a century and chose to speak anyway. A woman who'd stopped waiting to be heard. A woman who didn't need revenge to feel powerful. She just needed her name back. He showed up with a folder, pressed pants, shiny shoes, and a forced calm that reeked of panic. Emma's husband, Paul, stood on my doorstep, holding a brown folder like it was armor. He didn't ask to come in. He knew I wouldn't let him. "I talked to your lawyer," he said. "This is getting out of hand." I crossed my arms. "Out of your hands, you mean?" He flinched at that. "Just barely." "I came to offer a solution," he said. Voice clip. "A way to avoid court. You don't need that kind of stress, Ruth." There it was again. Tone. The act of concern. The quiet suggestion that I couldn't handle what I'd already lived through. "I'm fine," I said. "You, on the other hand, look tired." He didn't smile. "I've talked to the family," he said, adjusting the folder in his hands. "If you'll sign a partial agreement, give up the inheritance claim but keep the house, we'll drop the trust watch. Let you live comfortably. No court. No drama. Everyone wins." I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. "You think this is about money?" He hesitated. "Isn't it?" "No," I said flatly. "It's about my name. And the fact that no one, not you, not Emma, not Tom, not anyone gets to erase it." Paul held out the folder. "Please, Ruth. This is the right way." I didn't take it. "The right way," echoed. "He spent years planning to make me disappear. You were going to help. And now you want me to nod along for convenience. It was never personal. It was my life, Paul. He blinked. And for the first time since this began, he looked uncertain. Not shaken. Not sorry. But unsure. Like he couldn't understand how this had turned on him. You were always quiet, he said. You never argued. You never. Because I was surviving. He looked away. You all thought I was soft, I said. Voice steady. But I was waiting. Watching. Gathering. Now I have truth. And you have damage control. He stepped back. The folder in his hand drooped slightly. The papers inside beginning to slide. I didn't offer to catch them. You still have time, he said quietly. To make this simple. I looked him in the eye. So do you. He turned. Folder clutched to his chest like a wounded thing. And left without another word. When the door closed behind me, I locked it. Not out of fear. Out of clarity. Later that afternoon, Mr. Torres called. Just heard from their legal team, he said. They're getting nervous. Offered a settlement. I don't want a settlement, I said. I told them as much. He paused. Then added. You're making waves. I'm making records, I corrected. The next morning, I stood in front of a group of 7 women at the library. 3 widows. 2 divorced. 1 social worker. 1 daughter. And 1 woman who simply said, I don't know why I came, but I think I was supposed to. I held up a photo of the will. The forged diagnosis. The power paper he'd filed without my knowledge. Then I spoke about control that wears a smile. About marriages where silence is rewarded and questions are punished. About being trained into helplessness with praise and stripped of power in the name of protection. Every face in the room nodded. Some cried. 1 woman whispered, He does that too. When I finished, I said, If you feel like something is being done to you instead of with you, stop. Push. Document. Because the paper trail they leave can be the rope you climb out on. The room was quiet. Then 1 woman clapped. Then another. It wasn't applause like a show. It was recognition. Afterward, 2 women stayed behind. I want to talk to your lawyer, one said. The other looked at me with soft eyes and said, How did you stay so calm through it all? Smiled. I didn't, I said. But I didn't let that stop me either. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and lit a single candle. Not for mourning. For light. Because I wasn't fighting a man anymore. I was fighting a story. And I was finally writing my own. The court date came with rain. Not a storm. Nothing big. Just a soft, steady drizzle. Like the sky was washing off something old. I wore blue. Not black. Black would have made it about him. Blue was for strength. Quiet. Solid. Real. I pinned my hair up myself. No fuss. No shaking hands. Judith met me outside the courthouse. She didn't say much. Just nodded once. Inside the room was small. Clean. Bright lights. Brown carpet. A clock that ticked a little too loudly. Paul and Emma sat at the other table with their lawyer. A tall man with slick hair and the kind of voice that slid through arguments. They didn't look at me. Didn't smile. Just whispered behind their papers like kids who'd been caught cheating. The judge, a woman in her 60s, called us to order. The hearing wasn't a trial. Just the first step. A request to dissolve the trust. Revoke the executor's rights. And return full authority to me. Judith stood first. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She laid out the facts like bricks. False perception of mental problems. Tricky legal documents. Absence of a real medical diagnosis. And intentional control of money to limit freedom. Then she presented the evidence. My notes. The files. The declaration of inability with its convenient backdate. The medication records. Nancy's statement. Lily's observation. The letter he left. Stop this now or the world will see what I always saw. Judith read that last line out loud. The room fell into a long frozen pause. Then it was their turn. Their lawyer stood. He used words like confused, fragile, protective intentions, family care. He didn't look at me once. Because if he had, he would have seen the truth. I was none of those things. When he was done, the judge looked at me. "Mrs. Ruth," she said, "do you wish to make a statement?" Understood. No notes, just my voice. I was married to a man who believed love meant control. That if he dressed it up as care, no one would notice the chain. He planned my decline like a retirement package. Structured, hidden, greedy. And the worst part is, for a long time I agreed with him. Not because I was weak. 'Cause I was tired. 'Cause I thought marriage meant giving in. Because I thought silence was respect. Took a breath. But then I opened the door. Another breath. And what I found wasn't love. It was a case file on my life. He had erased me. Legally. Emotionally. Financially. And I didn't even notice until I did. And once I did, I couldn't go back. I looked the judge in the eye. "I'm not here to be angry. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to take back what was always mine." The judge nodded once. Then stopped the hearing for thinking time. 30 minutes later we came back to the courtroom. Her ruling was short, firm. The trust is hereby dissolved. The named executor is removed. All assets, property, and legal authority returned to Ruth Grace. Paul and Emma didn't move. Not even when the gavel fell. Judith touched my arm gently. "It's done," she said. But it wasn't the gavel or her words that made it real. It was the way I breathed out. Like I hadn't breathed in years. Outside the rain had stopped. The pavement shimmered. I stood at the top of the courthouse steps. Bag in hand. No one beside me. And I wasn't lonely. I was whole. I walked down those steps without looking back. Because when you leave a cage, you don't stop to memorize the bars. I didn't throw anything out right away. It's tempting after a win to start getting rid of stuff. Photos, papers, anything that smells like the past. But I knew better. Winning isn't the same as healing. Healing comes slow, quiet. It doesn't march. It lingers. So the house stayed the same for a few days. Same furniture he picked. Same layout. Same heavy curtains in the living room. But then one morning I opened all the windows. Every single one. I let the air move through like a wave. I watched the curtains sway. I didn't touch a thing. Just let the breeze remind the walls what it felt like to be alive. Then I opened the drawer in his office and pulled out the envelope I'd been avoiding. To Ruth, if she ever finds this. I read it again. Slowly. "You're not well, Ruth. You haven't been for a long time. You don't see what I see. You twist things. Forget things. And I knew one day you'd come for what's mine. So I set this up because you weren't safe anymore. Not to yourself. I did this to protect you. I hope you understand. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even mean. That's what made it worse. It was a man justifying himself in the language of care. A man so sure of his rightness. He wrote this letter, thinking I'd read it in shame. I folded it once. Slid it back into the envelope. Wrote across the front in black ink. This was never love. Then I sealed it. Not to keep. To bury. That afternoon I drove to a quiet park just outside town. There's a walking path there. Mostly flat. With old trees and a stream that hums. I used to walk it before he started calling my outings too much activity. I walked it again. Letter in hand. At the halfway point, there's a bench under a crooked oak. I sat there alone and read the letter one last time. Then I tore it in half. Then again. And again. Until the wind carried the pieces out of my lap and into the trees. And just like that I let it go. Not the memory. Not the pain. But the power it had over me. When I got home I did start throwing things out. Not out of spite. Out of space. The curtains. The folders. His collection of awards from medical meetings I was never invited to. The chair he never let me sit in. The file labels with my name like a patient tag. Kept the records though. Evidence. Neatly boxed. Not as a monument, but as a marker. A reminder of what awareness looks like. A few weeks later, the workshop at the library doubled in size. Women brought friends. Daughters. Neighbors. One even brought her husband. Said she wanted him to hear what silence sounds like. Judith came to one. She sat in the back taking notes. I want to start a help center, I told her after. For women who feel something's off but don't know what. A place to ask questions before it's too late. She nodded. You'd be good at that. I already am, I said. And I believed it. Lily visits every other weekend now. We cook. We laugh. We talk about college. She asked me once, Grandma, do you think he ever really loved you? I didn't answer right away. Because the truth is I don't know. Maybe he loved the version of me he created. The soft one. Quiet one. The one who didn't ask why. But me. Ruth Grace. Well, I don't think he ever saw her at all. And that used to break my heart. Now it breaks his story. Because I didn't just survive him. I exposed him. Quietly. Completely. I took apart the system he built with folders and charm and concern. And I did it not with rage, but with truth. I kept a copy of the court ruling in a small frame by my bed. Not because I need proof. Because I like remembering the day the silence ended. The day my voice, soft, aged, persistent, became louder than his ghost. If you're reading this, if you're nodding along, then maybe it's your time too. Time to open the locked room. Time to read the papers. Time to tell the truth. Don't wait for someone to rescue you. They will call you angry. They will call you difficult. They will say you're remembering wrong. Let them. 'Cause you know. And now you speak. And we hear you. Like this story. Share it. Someone else might need to know they're not crazy. Just controlled. I wake up now to birdsong. Not an alarm. Not his voice from downstairs asking where his coffee is. Just birds. And the sound of my own breathing. Low. Steady. I make my own schedule now. Not one written for me. Not one approved by anyone else. Just mine. Some days I go to the library. Some days I stay home and read. Some days I call Dorothy and we talk for hours about nothing important. And that's the point. It doesn't have to be important. Just has to be mine. The house feels different now. Lighter. The walls don't press in anymore. I painted the living room yellow. His favorite color was gray. But mine is yellow. So that's what it is now. I bought new curtains. Light ones that let the sun in. I rearranged the furniture. Put my favorite chair by the window. The one he said didn't match. Matches me. That's all that matters. The office is still there. But it's not his anymore. I turned it into a reading room. Took out the desk. Brought in a soft chair. Put up shelves with my books. The ones I wanted to read but never had time for. Now I have time. All the time in the world. Sometimes people ask me if I'm angry. If I hate him. If I wish things had been different. I don't know how to answer that. Because anger is too simple. Hate is too clean. The truth is Messier. I'm sad for the woman I was. The one who didn't know she could say no. The one who thought love meant disappearing. But I'm not that woman anymore. And I don't hate him. Pity him. Because he spent his whole life building walls. And he died inside them. Alone. Even when I was right there beside him. Emma doesn't call anymore. Paul neither. That's fine. I don't need them. Have my friends. My granddaughter. My voice. That's enough. More than enough. The workshop at the library keeps growing. Last week 15 women came. One of them stood up at the end and said, I thought I was the only one. And I told her what Dorothy told me. You're not alone. Because that's the thing about silence. It makes you think you're the only one. But you're not. There are so many of us. Quiet. Invisible. Erased. But we're still here. And we're waking up. One by one. Room by room. Door by door. I got a letter last week from a woman named Maria. She saw one of my flyers at the library. She wrote, Thank you for telling your story. I thought I was going crazy. But now I know I'm not. I'm just controlled. And I'm going to change that. I cried when I read it. Not sad tears. Proud tears. Because that's what this is about. Not revenge. Not money. Not even justice, really. It's about waking up. It's about remembering who you were before someone told you who to be. It's about opening the locked door and walking through it. Even when you're scared. Even when you're tired. Even when everyone tells you not to. I'm 73 years old. I've been married. I've been widowed. I've been erased and rewritten and controlled and freed. And I'm still here. Still learning. Still growing. Still becoming. Tom thought he could write my story. He thought he could control the ending. But he was wrong. Because the ending isn't written yet. I'm still here. Still writing. Still living. And the pen is in my hand now. Not his. So if you're reading this, if you're listening, if you're nodding along thinking, that sounds like my life, then hear me. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not alone. You are controlled. And control is not love. Love doesn't lock doors. Love doesn't hide papers. Love doesn't make you small. Love doesn't erase you. Love doesn't need permission. Love doesn't keep files. Love doesn't build cages. Real love sets you free. And if the person you're with isn't setting you free, then it's not love. Something else. And you deserve better. You deserve truth. You deserve freedom. You deserve your own name. Your own voice. Your own life. Don't wait until they're gone to open the door. Open it now. While you still can. While you're still here. While your voice still works. While your hands can still turn the knob. Open the door. Walk through. And don't look back. Because on the other side is you. The real you. The one you forgot. The one they tried to hide. She's still there. Waiting. And she's stronger than you think. You know. Because I found her. And so can you. The other day I was walking through town. Past the coffee shop. Past the bookstore. Past the park where children play. And I saw a woman sitting on a bench. She looked sad. Tired. Like she was trying to take up as little space as possible. I almost kept walking. But something stopped me. I sat down next to her. Didn't say anything at first. I sat. Finally she looked at me. Do I know you? She asked. No, I said. But I know you. She blinked. Confused. I used to sit like that, I said softly. Like I was afraid to take up space. Like I didn't deserve to be here. Her eyes filled with tears. How did you know? Because I lived it, I said. We talked for an hour. Maybe more. She told me about her husband. How he checks her phone. How he controls the money. How he says it's because he loves her. How she feels like she's disappearing. You are disappearing, I told her. But you can come back. I gave her my number. Told her about the workshop. Told her she wasn't alone. When she left she hugged me. Like I'd given her something precious. And maybe I had. Oh, that's what we give each other. Those of us who've walked through the locked door. We give each other hope. And permission. Permission to be angry. Permission to leave. Permission to take up space. Permission to exist. That's what Tom took from me. Permission to exist. But I took it back. And now I'm giving it to others. One woman at a time. One story at a time. One locked door at a time. This is my life now. Not the one he planned. Not the one he wrote in his files. Not the one he controlled from his locked office. This is my life. The one I'm writing. The one I'm living. The one I'm sharing. And it's beautiful. Not perfect. Not easy. But mine. Oh, mine. And that's enough. More than enough. It's everything. So this is my message to you. Whoever you are. Wherever you are. Whatever locked door you're standing in front of. Open it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for courage. Just open it. Because on the other side is your life. Your real life. The one you deserve. The one that's waiting for you. Open the door. Walk through. And live. Really live. Because you only get one life. Don't let someone else write it for you. Write it yourself. I did. And I'm never going back. Never. My name is Ruth Grace. I'm 73 years old. I was married for 48 years to a man who tried to erase me. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still speaking. Still living. And this is my story. Not his. And I'm sharing it with you. 'Cause maybe you need to hear it. Maybe you need to know it's possible. Maybe you need permission. So here it is. Permission granted. Open the door. Walk through. And live. Your life is waiting. Don't keep it waiting any longer. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for believing me. Now go. Open your door. And live. Really live. 'Cause you deserve it. You always did. You just forgot. But now you remember. So go. Life. Be free. Be you. The real you. The one who's been waiting. She's still there. And she's ready. Are you? Hope so. Because the world needs more women who've walked through locked doors. More women who've taken back their names. More women who've chosen themselves. More women who've said enough. More women who've opened their mouths and spoken truth. More women who've refused to disappear. More women like you. Me. So let's do this. Together. One door at a time. One truth at a time. One life at a time. Let's open the doors. Let's speak the truth. Let's live our lives. Really live them. Not the ones we're given. The ones we choose. The ones we create. The ones we deserve. Let's do it. Starting now. Starting today. Starting this moment. Open the door. And walk through. Your life is waiting. And so am I. Welcome home. Welcome back. Welcome to the other side. Where the air is clear. Where the light is bright. Where your voice echoes. Where your name matters. Where you matter. Welcome. You made it. And I'm so proud of you. So proud. Now go. Life. Be free. Be you. Be everything you were meant to be. Everything they tried to take from you. Everything you forgot you were. Oh, life. Your time has come. And it's beautiful. So beautiful. Just like you. This is Ruth Grace, signing off from Granny's voice. Remember, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are strong. You are worthy. You are enough. Always have been. Always will be. Don't let anyone tell you different. Not even yourself.